In this video, we will see what is a dual axis chart and what is a combined axis chart in Tableau. First we will see dual axis chart, then we will see combined axis chart, and then finally we will see a combination of both dual and combined axis chart. First, what is a dual axis chart? A dual axis chart basically creates two independent axes. On that we can plot two different measures on the same chart, and either we can synchronize the axis or we don't want to synchronize it based on our requirement. So first let us try to create a dual axis chart. For that I am going to first drag the orders date column into the column shelf, which we can use as our x-axis. So currently it's year. Now let us change that to month year, which is continuous. Let me hide this caption as well. So hide this card. Then what we are going to do here is we are going to compare profit and sales. First let me drag the sales into row, then let me drag profit into row. Now we got two different line chart, which is because we have two different measures on the row card. So we have two different axes created for sales and profit, and we have a common axis which is the month of order date. Now by seeing this, it is actually not very easy to compare both sales and profit, because sales, the axis is in a different scale, and when we come to the profit, this is in another scale. Now what we want to do here is we want to basically combine both of these axes into single axis, so that we can go ahead and compare the profit and sales in a particular month and year. So what we can do here is either we can click here and click on dual axis. Now what happens is, now it has combined both the y-axis and created a single chart. So we have a common x-axis and two different y-axis. Here it's sales and the right side it's profit. Now we can see the trend in which profit and sales is basically interacting. But this does not give us an actual picture because both the two axes are in different scale. Now what we can do here is we can synchronize the axis so that both the axes are in same scale. So we right click on the axis, then synchronize axis. Now we can see that both the profit and sales axis are in same scale. So the maximum value which we can see here is 550k, and when I come to the profit axis, here also it's 550k. So we can see what happens with profit and what happens with sales. So what we can do here is we can also create a trend line based on which we can see what basically happens to profit and what basically happens to sales. So what we can do here is we can go to the analytics pane. So we can see a trend line here. Let me drag this trend line to the chart. So we want a sales and profit trend line. So I'm giving it here. So I'm keeping it linear for here. So I'm keeping it linear. Now we can see that the sales is increasing along with month and year. Also profit is increasing along with month and year, but the rate of profit increase is very less compared to that of the sales increase. So when we hover over the trend line, we can also see a regression equation which is created based on the trend line. And when I come to the profit, here also we can see similar regression equation created based on the trend line. So this is how basically a dual axis chart works, and it is not necessary that we have to go ahead and create this trend line on down. I just wanted to create it because I just can show why basically we create a dual axis chart. It is basically to compare two different measures. Now we will remove these trend lines, okay, because that is not actually required. Now let me come to the limitation of this dual axis chart. So now what we want to do here is we want to compare one more measure with this sales and profit. So what I want to compare here is shipping cost. I wanted to compare shipping cost with sales and profit. Now let me drag this shipping cost to sales and profit. Now what happens is shipping cost has created one more new y-axis which is different from sales and profit axis. And now if we try to combine this axis with the same method which we saw earlier, we won't be able to find a dual axis option here. So from this we can understand that we can't combine more than 2 measures on a dual axis chart. In order to solve this limitation, we are going to use the combined axis chart. So now we'll move on to the combined axis chart. Before that, let me remove this shipping cost from the row card, and also here it is a synchronized axis chart. It can also be a non-synchronized axis chart depending upon our requirement. So that option we can disable and enable here. So yeah, sorry, you will find it here. Yeah, so you can either synchronize this. Currently it's synchronized. If you click on it once again, now it's desynchronized. So now here we will synchronize it because that is what we want to see here. Now moving on to combined axis chart. So basically a combined axis chart merge 2 or more measures into a single axis. So we can plot as many measures as we like on the same chart. So this is why we use a combined axis chart, where we can combine more than 2 measures on a single axis. Let me hide this captions card. Now we will try to create a combined axis chart. Further, we are going to take the same order date in the column shelf, which we consider as the x-axis, and here also we are going to take the continuous month year dimension. Now we will compare 3 different measures, which are sales, shipping cost and profit. Now what we have to do here is, I'm going to take this measure name and put it inside the filter pane. Now I wanted only the 3 measures which are profit, sales and shipping cost. Now click on OK after selecting the 3 measures or whichever measures is required. Now scrolling down, we will see a measure automatically created. Now we'll take this measure value to the row shelf, and one more thing we have to do, we will take this measure name and put it in the color card. Yeah, now if you see the chart, we can see that 3 different measures are plotted on a single axis, which is one common y-axis and one common x-axis, and which are of same scale. And now we can easily compare the 3 measures, which are profit, sales and shipping cost. So profit is in blue color, sales is in orange color and shipping cost is in red color. Now it is very easy for us to compare all the 3 measures. So this is why we use a combined axis chart when we cannot compare more than 2 measures on a dual axis chart. Now we'll move on to a combination of combined axis chart and dual axis chart. Now what I will do here is, I will create the same combined axis chart first. So I will drag the order date, where is my order date column? Yeah, order date column into column shelf, and I will put that as a continuous month year date. Now I'm going to take measure name into the filter pane, and we'll take the 3 measures, which is profit, sales and shipping cost. Click on OK. I'm taking this measure value into row shelf and measure name into color marks card. Now we have the combined axis chart, which we have created in the previous example. Now I wanted quantity also in this measure, but in a separate axis. At that time we can use a combination of combined and dual axis chart. What we can do here is, I'm going to drag this quantity into row shelf, and now we can see that a new axis is created, new y-axis is created based on the quantity measure. Now I can click on the drop down on the quantity measure in the row shelf, and I can click on the dual axis. Now we can basically say that we have a combination of combined and dual axis chart here, because using the first measure value measure, we have created a combined axis chart where we show 3 measures with the first y-axis, and we have a second measure, which is the quantity measure, which is created based on a second quantity y-axis, and that is a completely different axis which is not aligned with the first one. So basically this is a combination of combined axis chart and dual axis chart. Depending upon our requirement, we'll have to see whether we have to select dual axis chart, combined axis chart, or a combination of dual and combined axis chart. And this is the basic difference between a combined axis chart and a dual axis chart. Thanks for watching the video.